I came into this marriage with a secret, she began, but not the one you think. Before she speaks further, a man in a waiter's uniform whispers something in Cale's ear, and Cale's face turns white. Elira's secret is about to be revealed, but whose secret is more shocking? A woman marries a billionaire to avenge her past, only to fall in love with him, until a shocking truth at his birthday dinner reveals. But before we start the video, let us know where you're watching this video. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe, Story Store, and please share your thoughts about this story in comment section. The chandeliers sparkled above 100 glittering guests as Cole Straven, the enigmatic tech magnate, raised his champagne glass. The grand banquet hall was awash in golden light, with every eye on the man of the hour. Sharp suit, sharper smile. It was his 35th birthday, and the evening was unfolding with luxury, laughter, and charm, until she spoke. "I need to say something before the toast," Elira said, standing up slowly beside him, her hand visibly trembling as she placed it on the table. Her voice was soft, but cut through the room like glass. The entire hall fell silent. Cole turned to his wife, his stunning, composed wife of 6 months, with confusion flickering in his icy blue eyes. "Elira?" he asked, barely audible. Her lips parted, words hovered. But before she could speak, a man in a waiter's uniform leaned close to Kyle and whispered something in his ear. Kyle's expression changed instantly, like he'd been struck. He froze, champagne still raised. "Elira," he said, not looking at her now, but at the message in his hand. "What did you do?" Gasps rippled through the guests. Elira's breath hitched. "I came into this marriage with a secret," she began, voice cracking. "But not the one you think." At that moment, the waiter stepped back and locked eyes with Elira. A flicker of recognition passed between them. He wasn't a waiter. He was someone else. Someone from her past. Cole looked from Elira to the man, then back again. Betrayal, confusion, fear. They warred across his face. Whatever celebration this was meant to be, it had turned into something else. The past had walked into the room, and no one at the table would leave untouched by it. 6 months before the birthday dinner disaster, Elira smiled beneath her lace veil, but her eyes were ice. The ceremony was flawless. Vows under a glass dome, guests dressed in opulence, violinists playing a love song that meant nothing to her. To the world, it was a fairy tale wedding. To Elira, it was the beginning of carefully planned revenge. Kyle Straven, brilliant billionaire and the groom, looked at her with adoration. He believed he'd found grace, beauty, and devotion. Elira, on the other hand, was playing a part. She had studied every gesture, every answer, every charm that Cole admired. "You'll never see it coming," she had once whispered to a photo of her mother, tucked in her dresser. "This is for you." But even Elira hadn't expected Cole to be this human. After the wedding, Cole carried her over the threshold of the Straven estate, a mansion resting on secrets. He laughed about how clumsy he was at love, how he'd been hurt before. His vulnerability threw her off. Still, her mission remained. She needed access to his private study, the old records, the truth he buried. And then came the rule she didn't expect. "The West Wing is off limits," Cole said one night, his voice gentle but final. That was when Elira knew, whatever he was hiding, it started there. The West Wing beckoned like a dare. Elira waited until Cole left for an overnight business trip in Singapore. Dressed in silk and silence, she crept down the marble hallway and reached the heavy oak door. It was locked, of course, but she'd already slipped the spare key from his drawer days ago. The door creaked open into darkness. Inside was a time capsule. dust-covered furniture, covered portraits, and a distinct feeling of abandonment. The air smelled like old memories. Her eyes scanned the room until she spotted a half-open drawer in an antique desk. Inside was a torn envelope yellowed by age. In Cale's handwriting it read, "To the one who destroyed my family." Illyra's pulse surged. She opened it. The letter wasn't addressed to anyone specific, but the words were venomous, about betrayal, a ruined legacy, and someone whose lies shattered everything Cale once believed in. The most chilling line, "I will never forgive the woman who wore kindness as a mask." Illyra's breath caught. Could he be talking about her mother? She had always thought Cale didn't know who was behind his family's downfall. Now she wasn't sure. What if he had known all along? What if this marriage was a trap, too? She closed the drawer, but didn't notice the silent security camera blinking red in the corner. Someone was watching. It started with a flicker of movement. From the library window, Illyra noticed a man standing by the rose bushes, alone, still, watching the house. He wore a dark coat and a blank expression, like he belonged to the shadows. When she mentioned him to the house staff, they exchanged a glance and brushed it off. "That's just Wren," said Laria, the head maid. "He works security, nothing to worry about." But Illyra was worried. The next evening, she saw him again, this time closer. As she passed by the corridor near the courtyard, she glanced down and found him staring straight up at her through the glass. Not menacing, not curious, knowing. Later that night, she found a note slipped under her door. No name, no signature, just one line written in a sharp, slanted hand. "You're not the only one lying in this house." Her blood ran cold. Who was he? How much did he know? And more importantly, who was he protecting? Cale returned that night unusually quiet. When she casually mentioned Wren, Coyle's face changed subtly, just for a second. "Wren's been with the family a long time," he said. "Loyal, silent, forgettable." But Illyra no longer believed anything in this house was forgettable. And definitely not Wren. Illyra couldn't sleep. The note from Wren haunted her. But something else kept her up, a voice, faint and muffled, coming from behind the walls. At first, she thought it was the wind. But the third night it happened, she followed it. Down the hall, past Cale's study, to the door at the far end of the west wing, one she hadn't dared open. It wasn't locked. Inside was a music room, layered in dust, sheet music scattered like fallen feathers. But in the corner was a speaker, old, analog, connected to something hidden in the walls. She turned it on, static, then a whisper, a woman's voice, trembling, broken. "Kyle, I'm sorry. I never meant for her to get hurt." Illyra stumbled back, heart pounding. She knew that voice. It was her mother. Shaking, she turned the volume knob, but the audio vanished. Gone like a ghost. That night, Cale entered their bedroom with a strange stillness. He looked at her like he was searching for something beneath her skin. "Illyra," he said slowly, "if you could erase the past, would you?" She paused. "I'd rather know the truth," she replied. Cole smiled sadly. "Then be careful. Some truths are like fire, beautiful, until they touch you." The next morning, Illyra returned to the music room. She searched behind curtains, beneath rugs, inside drawers. Nothing. But then she noticed something odd. The grand piano's legs left faint indentations on the floorboards. All four, except one. Her fingers traced the edge of the floor beneath it, tapping. Hollow. She pried it open carefully, a hidden compartment. Inside, a velvet-covered box, no lock, no key. Just an emblem on the lid, a silver lion pierced with an arrow. She opened it. Letters. dozens of them, each addressed to Coil from a woman named Aurelia. The handwriting, it was unmistakable. It was her mother's. Illyra's chest tightened as she read one. I couldn't tell you the truth, Cale. I wasn't who I said I was. I loved you, but I destroyed us before we ever had a chance. Her mother and Cale. Before she could process it, footsteps echoed outside the door. Panicked, she shoved everything back and closed the floorboard, just as Cale walked in. His eyes scanned the room, calm, sharp, dangerous. Looking for something? He asked softly. Illyra forced a smile. Just exploring. He tilted his head. This room hasn't been opened in 10 years. You must be braver than most. Then he walked away, without looking back. But she knew now. He remembered everything. The next day, a sleek black envelope appeared on Illyra's dressing table. No sender, no stamp. Just her name, handwritten in silver ink. Inside, an invitation. Private dinner, 8 p.m. Garden Pavilion. Come alone. It wasn't from Cale. His signature was bold, always confident. This handwriting was rushed. Urgent. That evening, Illyra slipped into the garden's shadows, her heels sinking slightly into the damp grass. The pavilion sat under a canopy of glowing lanterns, warm light flickering like whispers. She was alone until Wren stepped out from behind a stone pillar. I told you, he said, voice low. You're not the only one lying. She froze. Then start telling me the truth. He handed her a small, oged photo. It showed Cale, barely 20, standing beside her mother, Aurelia, not as enemies but as lovers. Smiling. Happy. Together. My job, Wren continued, was to protect Coil from her, from what she was hiding. But the truth, she didn't ruin his family. She tried to save it. Illyra's head spun. Everything she believed, every reason she married Coil, it all cracked. She left him, Wren said, because she thought someone was going to kill him. Illyra's voice trembled. Who? Wren glanced over her shoulder, eyes sharp, cautious. Ask his father, he whispered, if you can find him. But his father's dead. Wren's expression turned grim. That's what everyone thinks. Illyra couldn't shake the words from her mind. Ask his father. The next day, she found herself at the old Straven estate, Coil's father's former home. It was a place few dared visit, buried in the overgrown woods behind the main house. Illyra entered cautiously, heart pounding. The door creaked open, revealing dust-covered antiques and yellowing photos. It felt like a mausoleum of forgotten memories. Her fingers traced the frames until she stopped at one. A portrait of Cale's father, smiling with a woman who looked eerily familiar. Aurelia. Not the face you were expecting, I assume? The voice startled her. Illyra turned to find Wren in the doorway, his face grim. What do you mean? She demanded, stepping forward. Kyle's father isn't dead. Wren's words hit her like a sledgehammer. He faked his death years ago, to protect Kyle from something much darker. Illyra's breath caught. Why didn't you tell him? She whispered. Because Coil wasn't ready, Wren replied, and neither are you. Illyra's eyes locked on the photo again. The truth was out there, and with every passing moment she was getting closer to the heart of the Straven family's twisted secrets. Illyra couldn't ignore the weight of Wren's words. Coil's father wasn't dead. He was alive, hiding somewhere in the shadows of his own empire. With her heart pounding, she made her way to the one place she knew Coil's father might be hiding. The old library hidden beneath the estate, a place Coil rarely visited. The air inside was thick with dust, the shelves overflowing with forgotten knowledge. But as she stepped deeper, A door she'd never noticed before caught her eye, rusted iron with no handle. Her fingers brushed the surface, feeling the cool metal beneath her skin. A small click echoed through the air. The door swung open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. At the far end, a figure stood, silhouetted against a faint light. "Elaira," a voice rumbled. She froze. It was Cale's father, unmistakable even in his older age. His sharp eyes, familiar from the portraits in the mansion, glowed with an intensity that mirrored his son's. "You should have stayed away," he said, his tone dark and low. "But now that you're here, you might as well learn everything." Elaira's pulse quickened. "What are you hiding? And why is Cale still in the dark?" The man smirked, a cruel glint in his eyes. "Because, my dear, he never should have known." Elaira's heart raced as Cale's father stepped closer, the dim light casting long shadows on his face. "You've been searching for answers, haven't you?" he said, his voice tinged with amusement. "But you don't understand the full story." Elaira's mind raced, trying to process the enormity of what was unfolding. "What story?" she demanded, her voice firm despite the tension in the air. "What are you hiding from Cale?" The older man's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Cale's mother, Aurelia, didn't just leave me. She ran because she discovered the truth about my family, the truth about our bloodline." Elaira felt a chill settle in her bones. "What do you mean?" Cale's father motioned for her to follow him as he led her deeper into the underground corridor. The walls were lined with old paintings and strange symbols. "This house," he continued, "was built on power, wealth, and secrets. But the greatest secret of all is our family's curse." Elaira's stomach twisted. "A curse?" "Yes. We were born to lead, born to rule. But every generation one of us is destined to be destroyed by the very thing we seek to protect." He paused, locking eyes with her. "Your mother knew this, which is why she wanted to protect Kyle. She thought I was the one doomed, but she never knew the truth." Elaira was caught in a whirlwind of confusion. "What truth?" The older man's eyes darkened. "Cole is the one who will bring about our downfall." The weight of his words hit her like a blow to the chest. Cole's birthday arrived under a heavy sky. The mansion buzzed with preparations, flowers, music, champagne. But Elaira could barely breathe. She now knew the truth. Cole was the one the curse would destroy. And he had no idea. Guests arrived in diamonds and silk, raising toasts to the man of the hour. Cole stood tall, composed, unaware that the very night meant to honor him might be his undoing. Elaira watched from across the room, torn. Her revenge had brought her here, but now love kept her rooted. She couldn't let him walk into the fire blindly. She slipped away, heading for the old wine cellar, the place where the final piece of the puzzle was hidden. Her mother's last letter, left behind years ago, was said to be sealed there by Aurelia herself. The cellar door creaked open. Inside, beneath a loose brick, she found a silk-wrapped envelope. Trembling, she read, "If Cale is reading this, it means Elaira has already chosen. She is the only one who can break the cycle." A sharp gasp escaped her lips. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind her. "Call." He stood in the doorway, holding a single candle. "Elaira," he said, voice low. "Why do I feel like tonight is not just about me?" Call stared at Elaira, candlelight flickering across his confused, searching face. "Elaira, what's going on?" She held the letter tight, voice trembling. "I didn't marry you for love, Cale. At least, not at first." His breath caught. "I came for revenge. I thought your family destroyed mine. I believed my mother died because of you, but I was wrong." She handed him the letter. He read in silence. When he looked up, his eyes were misted, not with betrayal, but pain. "She wanted to protect me," he said quietly, "from my own blood." Illyra nodded. "But your father lied to us both. You weren't the curse. You were the cure. The cycle ends with you." Cole stepped closer. "And you? What's your real secret?" Illyra took his hand, placing it gently on her stomach. "I'm pregnant." His eyes widened. Silence fell. Then, slowly, a tear slipped down his cheek. "So, we rewrite the story," he whispered. "Together." Later that night, Chaol stood at the head of the long dinner table as the guests applauded. But this time, Illyra stood beside him. Not as his enemy, but as his partner, his future. In a house once haunted by secrets, their child would be the first born into truth. And that was the real legacy.